Okay, now we're on.
Just Tom Brady it. Tom Brady, all right? Pelsman? Brady-esque.
Microphone's on.
Yep, we know.
I know. Everyone knows Dan's from Boston, so. There was no new word we invented in the OR the other day. It was just do what Brady would do.
Remember you asked me if I thought Mac Jones would be starting?
Move to Florida?
Yeah, move to Florida.
Cam Newton's cut today.
No. They cut Cam Newton?
So, seal that.
Not have to wait till week 3 or week 4.
I know.
Wow.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the UPMC Urology Town Hall. My name is Maria Perret and I'll be your moderator this evening. Quick background. I went to LSU for medical school. I have 5 adorable nieces and nephews, and I'm fortunate enough to be one of the PGY5s here at UPMC. I'd like to begin by thanking you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight. We understand that during COVID, things are all a little bit different. We're just hoping tonight you can get to know us and our program a little bit better. We do keep up just under an hour. There are a few things I'd like to quickly discuss prior to introducing our panel. First of all, this is being recorded live and will be uploaded to our website. So if it goes on for longer than expected, please feel free to leave and you can watch the rest of it at your convenience. We do want to do this webinar style, so we kindly ask that you all turn off your microphones and cameras as we answer all the questions you pre-submitted. Please feel free to submit any new questions you may have directly into the team's chat. And at the end, if we have time, we'll answer them. Whatever questions go unanswered, we'll gladly answer later and post them on a document on our website. Finally, I'd like to let you guys know that if you have any remaining questions or would like to meet one-on-one with one of our residents, we do have a way you can sign up for an informal individual 20-minute chat with one of our residents. You just have to sign up on our website. We'll copy the link directly into this chat. One of our PGY3s, Kristen Yorski, will do that now. And next, for introduction of our panelists. First up, one of our junior residents, Sean Nayak. He went to undergrad and med school in a combined 6-year program at Neomed. His future plans are undecided. His hobbies include swimming and hinge. Next up is Dan Pelsman. He's one of our PGY5s. He did undergraduate at Duke, medical school at Tufts. His future plans include applying to andrology fellowships. And in his free time, he enjoys a cappella, gardening, piano, and unfortunately to a lot of our attendees, Boston sports. Dr. Asilko is our Associate Program Director and specializes in trauma and reconstructive urology. He completed his urology residency at Northeast Ohio Medical University and his fellowship training at the Detroit Medical Center. Prior to joining UPMC, Dr. Asilko was an assistant professor in the Department of Urology at the George Washington University School of Medicine in DC. In his spare time, he enjoys spending time with his beautiful wife and 2 daughters and fly fishing. Finally, we have Dr. Jackman, who is our professor of urology and director of the Urology Residency Program here at UPMC. He completed his residency at Johns Hopkins University. Before joining UPMC, he was head of the urology department at the National Naval Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. His areas of interest include endourology and laparoscopy. In his spare time, he enjoys spending time with his family, swimming and hiking, and hanging out with his dog, Remy. All right, and now for some answers. I will stop sharing my screen. I will spotlight these guys. And again, if you guys can turn off your cameras and mute your microphones. Spotlight you guys. Remember, there's a button here. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Okay, so from left to right on your screens, you have Dr. Wasilko, Dan Pelsman, PGY5, Sean Nayak, one of our junior residents, PGY3, and Dr. Jackman on the right. We have divided the questions into 2 sections. The first will be residency-specific questions. The second portion will be resident life and life in Pittsburgh questions. I'll turn my camera off. All right, so under residency-specific, one of the first questions we got is there any formalized mentorship in the department? How is it structured? We will start with Dan and then Dr. Jackman.
So we do have a formal mentorship program, and it's actually between residents. So when you first enter the residency as an intern, you're paired with a PGY5 resident. That resident, that PGY5, is pretty much your go-to for any questions you might have about residency, life in Pittsburgh, or really anything for that matter. But on a social side of things, we also try to have our mentees over for dinners, go out with them, etc. So it's really kind of a welcoming environment for any new interns that come in. That mentorship program lasts for 2 years because we're a 6-year program. When you're a second year, you carry the same mentor forward. They're now a PGY 6. And by that time, you're pretty well acquainted to the program. Moving forward, though, as you progress through residency, then you start finding faculty mentors, and that really depends on what you want to do with your life. So, for example, I'm going into andrology and fertility, so I have several mentors, one of which is Dr. Rasilko, because he's a reconstructive urologist, which is very similar. Dr. Wong is one of our infertility and andrology specialists, so I meet with her a lot too. So you sort of figure out who your faculty mentors are as you go through the residency.
And indeed, the mentorship program is one that we've worked on for quite a number of years with a lot of help from the residents. We've tried a number of things, faculty mentors, peer-selected faculty mentors, but actually, again, based on resident suggestions, the decision was that what they really wanted was a resident mentor for the first couple of years, and this program now has been working out very well for the last few years. The then informal faculty mentor program works well because everyone finds their own faculty member, and all the faculty members have their doors open, and people, you can talk to anyone you need to pretty much for any reason at any time.
All right, thank you. Next question is, what is the call schedule like? Start with our junior resident, Sean.
So for our call schedule, it's actually pretty unique because it's become quite nice once we've introduced the night flow system into our program. So as a junior resident, that's when you start taking, that's when the bulk of your call is taken. You take it as a PGY 2 and 3 mainly. And how our system works in general is, you have 2 weekends on during the month and then 2 weekends off to make sure you're meeting your ACGME required days off. And the weekends and the days surrounding, you'll have either like 1 or 2 call days per month based on the night flow system, which is very convenient, for a junior resident because, during the week you spend most of your time operating and focusing on the rotation you're on. And then, you go home, rest up, and the next day you're ready to operate again. But in terms of, on the weekends, you have 1 or 2 days in the whole month. In terms of, night floats, you have a dedicated month or 2 of night float, depending on what year you are, either as a PGY 2 or a 3. And during that time, you are committed to the night float duties, which means you cover, multiple hospitals. We have 6 hospitals in our system, and you cover all 6. But you have the entire night to take care of anything that happens, and then you have the rest of the day off after your shift is over. And you still get your weekends off every other weekend, is what it worked out to be. So golden weekends for everyone.
And again, the night float system was designed together with Andy Mahaptra, one of our chief residents, really to make sure that nobody is going to work any Monday through Friday, a day that they're going to be working in the OR or the clinic. Nobody is going to work having been on call the night before, and that really is I think very helpful with respect to being able to focus, pay attention, be awake, et cetera, and really be optimized for learning.
Perfect. Next question is, how much autonomy do we have and what does this look like? What sort of procedures do seniors/graduating residents feel comfortable doing independently? Additionally, what is the robot versus open split in your surgical experience? First Dan, then Dr. Rasilko.
Okay, so that's a lot of questions.
They go together.
Rita, what are you doing to us?
So I can start with the autonomy aspect. One thing that I think is particularly strong in our program is this concept of graded autonomy. We start off as interns with very little surgical skills. Okay, we're not expected to come into the OR and know how to do a cystectomy on day 1. I don't think any program would expect you to, but the nice thing about our program is at no point do we ever feel like, a faculty member just leaves the room and leaves us to our own devices, letting us struggle through a case that that might be over our head. Instead, as we progress through residency, we're given additional responsibilities during the case based on what we know how to do. And then when you've demonstrated that you can do one portion of the case, then you get to move on to the next. So just as an example, right now, I'm working with Dr. Rosilko. Okay, I'm on my recon rotation, which we do as a 5th year. We've done a lot of penile prostheses together. When I first started, he did most of the case because I had done 3 in my residency. Okay, but over the last 2 months, I've probably done close to 15 or 20 with him. And now I'm taking junior residents through the case because I've gotten the steps down. Now, if I'm struggling, he's right there, scrubbed in, and I say, hey, Dr. Silko, can you come in and take a look at this? I'm not seeing this plane right, or this isn't feeling as well as it normally would. Now I can take junior residents through cases, which is great. Okay. In terms of, I'm only a 5th year resident, so I have 1 more year left. But our graduating residents, even if they don't do fellowships, are capable of doing the vast majority of urologic cases out there. A lot of it depends on how much time you put into actually learning the case. So if you don't want to learn how to do a cystectomy, you could do 500, but if you don't want to put the time in, you're not going to know how to do it after you graduate. However, I do know that several of our graduating chief residents, even without having done fellowship, can do cystectomies out there in private practice. They can do urethroplasties. They can do robotic cases, okay, so robotic prostatectomies, robotic partial nephrectomies, and this is without any additional training. So after graduation, our residents can do that if you want to learn how to do it. So I would encourage everyone to actually learn, because otherwise, what's the point of residency? But I think our residents do feel very comfortable with the vast majority of cases out there after finishing, and it's in large part due to that's graded autonomy.
Dr. Silko?
I mean, just to parallel what Dr. Pelsman said, with our program, when you can just look at just the meat, potatoes, and numbers, our residents graduate above the 90th, 95th percentile, really anything that's required. And that's just a reflection of the facilities, the attendings, the residents that we do have here. It's a great program. When we talk about that, we do have residents that go into fellowships, and we have residents that go private practice. Just speaking this last year, we had a resident go into private practice, and as you know, I do reconstruction. He's done buried penises, he's done complex hypospadias, adult redo urethroplasties, he's done calcarnia urethroplasties, and that's a senior level fellowship, complete, done, out several year kind of case, and he's doing these right off the bat as a graduate, 1st year out. And that's just speaking from reconstruction. The oncology exposure, both robotic and open, are amazing. And again, we have residents that go into fellowships and are academic. We have residents that go out and do private practice and are doing cystectomies. They're doing robotic, complex renal, bladder, kidney cases every year. And so it's a good reflection to the residents we have here. In regards to, as Dan said, one of the things that we really do strive on here is the see one, do one, teach one. And that's what we have a lot of residents where when you're juniors, we do have a lot of cases, complex cases, oncology, reconstruction, and fertility, where we have chiefs that are able to lead juniors through. And that's example right here. Dan's leading our 2nd year through penile surgeries, doing urethroplasties, where I'm just sitting in the corner of the room watching and just enjoying watching him teach and watching the growth of it. And that's just over the last 2 months since you've been on practice with me. And that's a standard fashion for both, like all the services we have, where we have consistently seniors leading the juniors through cases, where us as attendings are just enjoying sitting back and watching. And I'm sure Steve will agree with that.
So yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is kind of a good time to bring up the fact we have a unique program. I think many people look and say, oh, there's 5-year programs, there's 6-year programs. And most 6-year programs are truly 5-year programs with a complete year of research, which is not an accredited year. We are actually an accredited 6-year program, which is very odd. But we have it that way for a specific reason, because this is the way that we found we can really train residents the best. given the resources we have, which is lots and lots of cases in an area of the country where everything gets referred here from hours away. And in the old days, 20, 30 years ago, everyone did open surgery and most programs were 6 years. Now we do open surgery, we do laparoscopic surgery, we do robotic surgery, we do microscopic surgery, we do lots of endoscopic surgery, we do percutaneous surgery, we even do percutaneous surgery just by sticking needles in and freezing kidney tumors, for example. And somehow we're supposed to learn all those things now with only 5 years in many situations. And that's why I think fellowships are important in many cases. But it's also why, as Dan has said, that many of our residents can go out and do many of these advanced cases without a fellowship, because we have extra built-in time, because it's a resource that we just would hate to waste. We have that to teach residents. And instead of a full year of research, we have 6 months of research, which is probably something you're going to ask about later, or there'll be a question about later. But that 6 months is really very focused and concentrated, and because people know they have 6 months, they can get right into it. They plan ahead. They are all ready to go, and even then, we still get just as many papers as any program that does a full year of research. Yet you're still getting really what you end up with as a bonus, 6 months of extra urology time. And just to be important, there's no delay in your experience as a 6-year program. Our first year, which is theoretically general surgery, that's how it's accredited, is exactly the same as every urology program, with 6 months of general surgery and 6 months of urology. Important things to understand, and again, we watch our 5th years. We're great surgeons and could graduate, certainly, but by the end of their 6th year, they're outstanding technicians and outstanding surgeons. And so that's just something that we love to see, and that we know it can be done. And so that's the reason.
All right, thank you. What are the perks of the program? Do you pay for meals, parking? Sean?
So I haven't have to pay for parking or meals since I've gotten here, which is quite good because I eat a lot, park a lot. Considering we cover 6 hospitals. So, in terms of the perks, we're taken care of. We have, we're given jackets, and you can either get an iPad or the full Campbell's textbook set, like a physical copy, once as a 2nd year. And then on top of that, any conference that we go to, up to 2 per year, we get covered fully by our department. Which is quite nice because, all our residents are very academically inclined, and we all like to publish papers. So maybe there's an incentive to go to,
I think they like to go to conferences.
Yeah, maybe they like to go to conferences.
Exactly.
Good. Maybe. That's one of these things. But going aside from that too, and we get our meals covered because we get meal tickets, in all of our major hospitals that we cover, which I think is a big bonus. You don't have to worry about it when you're just at work. And then also on top of that, in terms of the operating room, you get loops as well, which we get as interns. Which I think is very helpful because we start off and 2 of our rotations are at Shadyside and at Mercy, which is where when the Mercy rotation is where we work with Dr. Rosoko a lot, and his thing is you should wear loops all the time, eating breakfast, just doing normal activities just to get used to them, because he makes you use them in the OR.
Going to the bathroom for some.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I can't comment on that. But yeah, so being as part of the program, we get a lot of perks as being resident here.
We also get 3 white coats a year. We get the SASP questions.
That's key.
Yearly. The Campbell's online stuff. Dan, did we miss anything?
I don't think so. Those are the big perks that would be more unique, I guess. We have all that benefits of being an academic medical center. I'm sure a lot of programs also have that.
The one thing I don't want to emphasize is conferences. I mean, we really strive the importance of our residents presenting, posters, podiums, and getting out and exploring and seeing other programs, program directors, especially when you're higher level. You can get out and meet program directors when you're thinking about fellowships. But if you get something accepted, we're going to send you there. Maybe if it's, 1 international trip a year, if it's something that Dr. Jackson likes, usually Endo-Euro, but we're going to get you to the conference. If you get something accepted, you're going, and we're going to make sure the time's off and you're available to do it.
All right. What does the research setup look like? Dan.
Okay, so Dr. Jackman had alluded to this a little bit earlier on. So I'll talk first about our dedicated research time and then just other research opportunities we have during our 6 years here. So as a fourth year, we have 6 total months of dedicated research time, which means you are protected from clinical duties. Once in a while, you may get called to cover a major case, which is also an educational experience, but this happens maybe 3 times over your 6 months. So the vast majority of days are dedicated to research. As it stands right now, we have 2 major avenues that most residents take during these 6 months. One is more of a basic science approach, and it's a bladder physiology lab. It uses cats because they have very good models of the human bladder. And believe it or not, the University of Pittsburgh Cat Bladder Research Group has actually come up with much of what we know about bladder physiology. So it's actually a very prolific lab. It's had some very prolific directors. So you hop on and they have tons of projects already ongoing. So you latch on to 1, 2, or 3, and then you can get several publications from that. So that's one path that some residents take. The other path that has really emerged within the last 4 or 5 years is the health services research opportunity, which is headed by Dr. Jacobs and Dr. Davies, who are 2 of our oncologists at Shadyside. Their whole goal is so health services research is kind of examining trends in healthcare. So it's not like, hey, what is the molecular basis of prostate cancer? It's, hey, are there disparities in the care of prostate cancer or disparities in how we treat prostate cancer? Recently, they've been very involved with actually minimizing opioid use. So just as a shout out to our program, we've almost gone completely opiate free for any patient, even patients getting major abdominal surgery. Our cystectomies don't get opiates after leaving the hospital. So that's one major push that they've had in the last few years that has, I think, started to catch on to other hospitals.
Which was in a white paper, which was just
published
today.
Recently. Yeah, Dr. Davies was one of the key authors on that. So that's what most residents do for their 6 months. You're not limited to those 2 things, though. If you find other research opportunities, our department is happy to support you in whatever endeavor you choose. So, for example, because I'm interested in infertility, I wanted to do a more infertility-based research project. I was on research from January to June of this year. So I was able to work with Dr. Wong and one of the University of Pittsburgh PIs who works a lot with mitosis, and I looked at how mice sperm are affected by vaping. So I came up with that project. I thought it was interesting. Dr. Jackman and Dr. Osoko said that's fine too. I also did some health services research work as well. But if you find your own project, then we're more than happy to support you in that too. You just may have to do a little bit more legwork because it's not already set up for you. During the rest of the 6 years here, we're bound with research opportunities. I would say probably 3/4 of our attendings are more than happy to be the PI on a project. If you come up with it, some of them also have project ideas where they say, hey, you know what, this is an interesting research question. Why don't we get a senior resident and a junior resident and a med student to figure it out? And you can allot different tasks to each based on their level. So even starting with 1st and 2nd year, you can get involved in research. You can start publishing papers. So if you want to do research, you can come here and there will be plenty of opportunities.
We have lots of unique patients, and it's great for especially for junior residents starting, a quick case report or a very brief series of something very unusual and interesting is always fun.
That goes along with our mentorship that we talked about earlier, the seniors and juniors, where when you come in, we've all been there in that situation as attendings, where when you're like an intern or a 2nd year, you're like, how do I do an IRB? What is research? What do I do? How do I do a lit review? And you have your senior mentor going, hey, hold on, this is how, let me help you start getting through an IRB. And we see it all the time. It's great to see the mentorship from the senior residents to the junior residents, helping them start that first research project, that first publication. And then 3 years later, they're doing the same thing again. They're paying it forward. It's something that's exciting to see.
And it's amazing. I think our most recent numbers were over 10 papers per person graduating, which is, I think, fantastic. And it's also, the way to pave your way to success and fellowship as well. So just just a good opportunity. And more importantly, everyone gets to go to conferences and make contacts and have a good time.
All right, Dan, we look forward to finding out how mice balls do with vaping.
Not
Right.
well.
And you built
Stay tuned.
your own vaping box. So
We have a
this is
vaping box with hot
dedicated.
box to mice.
Nobody else in the world has a mouse vaping box.
Yeah.
There you go.
So,
I'm not sure if that's something to brag about, but moving on. All right, so what would we consider the strengths and weaknesses of our program specialty-wise? Dr. Rusilko and Dan.
Well, I know this is something that was brought up earlier, but we are a large program and we do support several hospitals in the system. So you can look at it and say, call is busy. We're covering multiple hospitals, but you can also look at it in the flip side, saying, each hospital in our system sort of has its own unique functions: oncology, female, trauma reconstruction, general. And so you do get that exposure when you're on the rotations here, where it's really, some specialized where you can see that. But the call can be a little bit heavy, covering several hospitals. But that's something that's changed a little bit over the last couple of years with night float. And it seems like every year since we put it on, I think we've had it for about 3 or 4 years now.
Mm-hmm.
That the residents are a little bit more bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when they come into work. Waiting to see the in-services, and see how those go.
Last year they were phenomenal.
Yeah. But I would say that's one of the weaknesses you can look at and see about our program. But in turn, it can be maybe a strength.
It's right. It's big. It's busy, but it's got bounds with learning opportunities. So that's what you want to get out of residency, of course.
in terms of the different fields within urology, I'd say one of our weaknesses is our exposure to female urology, and part of that is because our women's hospital, McGee Women's Hospital, has really a world-class urogynecology department, and thankfully we're able to work with them sometimes. But they also have a whole slew of residents and fellows that work with them, so you can't be the fifth person scrubbed into the case. But we are able to work with them sometimes when, say, they're on their educational time, which is in the morning some days. We do have one dedicated female urologist who operates there at McGee, but because the urogynecology department sort of dominates that field, sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult to come by many female cases. We do hit all our numbers, we surpass it, we at least double them. And we have plenty of residents that go into females, probably like after oncology is probably the most popular.
Yeah, definitely two since I've been here, and I'm a
Yeah.
PGY5, and they got their first choice match.
Two recent ones, and they also spent their research time working with the urogynecology department, which really, again, doing world-class research on mesh and complications from that, and so it's a great opportunity that's there, but it does take maybe a little bit more work to get in and get as much case experience as you'd like. It's not kind of fed as easily as some of the other oncology and endourology and reconstructive urology is, but it's there for the finding.
Definitely, Kate got a SUFU grant, and she matched at NYU. She's first year human.
One of the other major strengths, though, and Dr. Silk sort of alluded to, is because we have a larger program in a single city, we're actually the only program in Pittsburgh. We're actually the only program in Western PA. We have like a 200-mile radius where we get patients from. Sometimes I think even more, like maybe 300 miles.
I think it's about 4 or 5 million population pool when you talk about the whole western side of the state,
Yeah.
which it's the only residency, it's the only academic center. So anything that's here, you guys get.
Right. Basically, any urologic problem that happens in Western Pennsylvania, any unique one, will somehow find its way to UPMC. I mean, people drive. I've seen people drive for 5 or 6 hours to come here, and we're still the closest hospital for them. It's pretty remarkable, how big of a radius we cover.
And the great news is that teaches people to think on their feet. It's not something that's going to be in the textbook. We have lots of need to apply knowledge that we have to figure out a problem that we've never seen before, and that keeps everybody, I think, interested.
All right, great. And we're doing great on time because this is our last residency-specific question. I'll direct this at Dr. Jackman. How do you envision the department evolving over the next 5 years?
Well, I think one of the major evolutions is we are actually finally finishing our progress toward having 4 residents every year. Our last group of 3 residents from a 3 per year is our chief residents, now PGY6, and will be graduating. We'll have 1 more chief resident, and right now we are looking at, by the nature of them graduating next year, we'll have 1 more chief resident. We're looking at what opportunities exist, and the problem is that there are too many, of course. But we're looking at putting a true kind of private practice type community urology rotation in, which is something that we don't exactly have. We do have different hospitals with different flavors, a little bit more academic, but no real true community urology working, side by side with some of the private urologists. So I think that's something we'd like to add. But that's really the big thing that we're looking at in the next couple years. I do not see us going to any more than 4 residents a year. I think that's a great number. We're doing very well with that. Lots of good experience, but more starts to get too big.
Perfect. All right, we will shift to our resident life in Pittsburgh specific questions. We will start with, are the residents close? Do they hang out outside of work? What about the relationship between the attendings and the residents? Start with Cham.
So, I mean, honestly, coming into residency, one thing you're looking for is, you're going to spending 5 or 6 years with, the residents who are there, the attendings there. You hear this a lot in the interview trail, especially, you're looking for your second family. And, I think at Pittsburgh, we offer that, very well. Coming in, I felt like welcome from day one. Look, we had this mentorship program. The attendings are great to work with. They encourage us to go to the operating room. They're always available. The residents very close, across all the classes, especially, even within your own class. You kind of go through the entire process of residency. And it is a surgical residency, so, it's a lot of work, but, if you spend that time at work with people you enjoy spending time with, it's actually quite doable. And then, we spend a lot of time, when we do have free time, on golden weekends, you have to spend time with people. So, my co-residents, other residents of the program, we spend a lot of time together and explore Pittsburgh.
Dan, have you found any friends here?
I did find one friend. Our program does have a good mix of kind of people in various stages of life, I guess would be the best way to put it. Some people come in and they're married. Some people come in and they have kids. Other people come in single. And then some of those single people end up meeting other residents and dating them and moving in with them, etc. So, you get people in various stages of relationships and various stages of family, and that's nice. So it's not like everyone here has kids, but it's also not like everyone is just single and ready to go to the casino every weekend. As fun as that might be for some people, it just doesn't have you. Again. So you get a pretty wide variety of people, and we all end up hanging out. But obviously, given the differences in some people's responsibilities, some may not be as free to hang out at like 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, but others might be. So you end up finding people that you kind of are able to go out with, or bring your kids and have a play date with. Like, we have both spectrum.
Yeah.
And we hang out with the attendings a lot too. So the attending and resident relationship is very good. Just as I know I've talked about Dr. Silko a lot here, but last week, my girlfriend and I went out with Dr. Silko, his wife, his 2 kids, and one of the scrub techs, and we all just got dinner. So, that kind of stuff does happen here. While I don't want to go so far as to say, oh, we're friends with the attendings, but we'll go out all the time. We do have a very collegial relationship, and I think the attendings do view us as their colleagues and treat us as such.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think we all have every one of our attending cell phone numbers in our phone and feel like we could call them for something both work and life related if we needed to.
Yes.
It's an open door policy here for sure, which is really, really nice. Which actually you segued us perfectly into the next question. Do any of the residents have children, families?
Yes. Yes, they do. So right now, 5? We have 23 residents.
Yes.
And I think 5 of them have children. Last year, one of the 4 had children, and the year before, all 3 had children. So yes, some residents do have kids, and the kids now range in age from like 1-2 months to 4 years, 5 years.
And we've had residents have children. And didn't Tim have a couple kids while he was 2 or 3?
Yeah, we've had
So-
3 female residents give birth in the last year and a half.
Yeah. I
Last
don't
year even, last 6 months rather.
And there's a very specific and useful and good maternity and paternity leave policy for residents here, and that's all. It's actually for the full UPMC, it's UPMC specific. But.
And I do believe some of the other residents have babysat
Yes.
for some of our residents, right?
I am the designated residency babysitter. And I'd like to echo on that. I'm not the only child care available. There UPMC, yeah. UPMC has just daycares available that our residents have found. None of us, the 3 of us residents in the room, have children, but obviously our very best friends have them, and they have had no trouble finding affordable childcare. A lot of it's through UPMC. A lot of them use the same nursery or daycare, and they have good hours and it's affordable because our residents are doing it, which is a question we do often get. And we'll move on to what are some fun things to do in the city of Pittsburgh. We'll start with Dr. Wasilka, who I know has a lot of opinions on the matter.
Well, we won't ask Dan about Boston stuff.
Yes.
That's right.
It is a very sports-oriented city, so if you are in athletics and enjoy sports, we do have 3 major sports teams: baseball, Pittsburgh Pirates; football, Pittsburgh Steelers; hockey, Pittsburgh Penguins. And all their arenas are right in the middle of the center of the town, so very easy to get to. Tickets are easy. Some of us attendings do have season tickets, and we do share them with the residents. I know that for a fact. So athletic-wise, professional sports. I do a lot of international traveling for lecturing and for surgeries, and we do have an international airport in Pittsburgh, which is very easy and convenient to get to. You can get to anywhere you want in the States within 1 or 2 flights. You can get international. We just had British Airs. So I think I've used that since we had British Airs. I think I used 4 times flights to London, and your access to anywhere you want in the world. So that's kind of nice. I think with right now that's on hiatus because of COVID, like everything else, but we have British Airs that fly in and out of Pittsburgh, which is nice to have. So we have international flights and availability. Other things, outdoors, and as Maria showed a nice picture of my fly fishing, Western Pennsylvania is very unique in the atmosphere, the environment that you do have. You have major rivers. You have the Allegheny, you have the Monongahela, which form, as John Madden would always say on Monday Night Football, the confluence, the Ohio, and the Ohio goes all the way into Mississippi and into the Gulf. I know I've had a couple friends here that have actually taken their boats and gone from Pittsburgh down through the Mississippi and out through New Orleans. So you have water sports, you have lakes, you have outdoor trails. We have the Rachel Carson Trail, which is a 50-mile thing, right, where we had lunch the other day, where you can hike 50 miles. It's biking, it's backpacking. So there's outdoor stuff to do. When we talk about arts, fine arts, history, you have some of the most influential individuals in the history of the world that come from Pittsburgh. You have Andrew Carnegie. You have the Mellon brothers, who are some of the richest known people in the history of the world, and they're philanthropists, but they've donated the majority of their fortunes to Pittsburgh. You have the Carnegie System, which is the Carnegie Science Center, the Carnegie Arts Center. You have Carnegie Mellon University. You have just a wealth of libraries, arts, fine arts, to abstract stuff such as Andy Warhol. We have the Andy Warhol Museum, which is here. So that's just a little bit of some stuff that we do have available here. What do you guys say, since you're more newbies here?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things to do in general. Like, like we were talking about, outdoors activities are nice, especially in the summer. It's always nice to be outdoors. There's outdoor concerts, there's parks, lakes, to swim in. In terms of just like routine, like, there's plethora of bars to go to, when you're just like, looking for, happy hour, if you after work, to hang out with your co-residents or other, friends.
And that's using the Hinge app or something. I just found out what Hinge was, so I had no clue what it was, but now I do.
Sean knows what it is.
Yeah. So basically, you have a lot of options, and then, if you want to go see museums, the zoos, there's a lot of opportunities for you to spend your free time.
There are a lot of good restaurants too.
Right.
So I think Pittsburgh has a somewhat unique take on restaurants in that there aren't that many like what we would consider like a Michelin star restaurant, but there are a ton, like where you need to dress up in a tux. Who wants that? Instead, we have a bunch of restaurants that are like run by someone that's lived in Pittsburgh for the last 70 years, and they make like the best pierogies you could ever have. and they're like $5 for a dozen. So I think we have a lot of restaurants like that. We have a lot of new kind of interesting concepts on restaurants, fusion restaurants. And I don't want to say they're casual, but they're not those like hoity-toity restaurants either that you might find in a place like Boston, for example. So the food scene here is great. I haven't run out of restaurants yet, and I'm in year 5, and new restaurants continue to open, and the food here is very good.
Another thing I can say too is the location and convenience. We're not exactly on the East Coast, but you're close enough to several major cities. I used to work and live in DC. It's a 3.5-hour, 4-hour drive from Pittsburgh. Philadelphia, 4.5. Cleveland, 1.5 hours. Buffalo, 2 hours. Columbus, 2 hours. You can get to New York City on a drive, 6 hours or 30-minute flight. I just came back from Cape Cod, and we got back in 10 hours. A drive from Cape Cod. So convenience for your golden weekends or holiday, you can easily drive to anywhere, visit probably friends or family that are close on the East Coast.
Yeah, to echo on the restaurants, one of our pediatric attendings actually is a third-part owner of a great Italian restaurant, Garbarina's, and our next pediatric journal club is going to be hosted there on him. So,
Perfect.
all right, perfect. We're doing excellent with time, and this is actually the last question of the night, and a very important one at that. So what is the cost of living like in Pittsburgh? And we'll go to the residents, since that's a much different salary situation.
I think obviously cost of living ends up being relative depending on where you're coming from. I went to med school in Boston. I grew up in the Northeast. Northeast is very expensive. So for me, Pittsburgh is cheap. For other people, it may be more expensive. I think the reality is when you look at like the average cost of living of Pittsburgh, it is like 2% either above or below the national average. So it's really like right in the middle. Just to give you some hard numbers, right now, I have a renovated 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath house, central air, off-street parking, a porch, and my girlfriend and I paid $2,300 a month. Okay. At some of the newer apartment buildings, you could get like a 1-bedroom or a studio for.
Yeah, it's like around $1,500, $1,600 per month, depending on like how fancy you want to go on the apartment situation.
Yeah. So you can get whatever you want. I mean, you can go a lot cheaper if you want. Like if you don't want a renovated house, if you just want wall units for air conditioners, you could probably find something for $800, $900 that's in a reasonable location here.
I think that's another thing. All the houses and the great living, city living a little bit farther out in the suburbs, it's all still within 15, 20 minutes of every hospital in the system. Although you hear 6 hospitals, they're all really just small hospitals that are pretty close to each other. You can walk to 3 of them from right here. So it's very straightforward. And moving here from DC, I would tell you that we basically spent the same, but we got 3 times more house. So
Yeah, I just moved, and I got something twice the size for half the price, which is amazing coming from DC.
And a large number of residents do buy their houses and then can sell them at the end, and that's great. Or you can rent, whatever you prefer.
One thing I can say, I probably live the furthest away. I live about 13 to 14 miles away from the city, and anytime it takes me 20 to 30 minutes at most to get in. So that's not bad when you talk about length and travel time. It's not bad.
I get angry if it takes me more than 5 minutes to get into any hospital.
Yeah, Dan and Sean both rent, but for example, David Miller, another one of the PGY5s, he lives about 15 minutes north of the highway, and he bought his house because he has a wife and 2 children. So depending on what your needs are, there's definitely something affordable you can absolutely buy. If you want to buy, you can absolutely go fancier and rent if you want to rent. But that does wrap up our questions, and we did great with time. We do realize there were 6 other open houses overlapping, so we really appreciate you guys' time and you guys being here. We will be posting this to our website for anyone who had to leave earlier is just arriving, and best of luck on the interview season. All right, we're offline. Good job, everyone.